The Feast of New Oil was already fulfilled in 2025. Now, for the Essenes, after the Pentecost, they counted to 50 for the second time for the Feast of New Wine, which I covered in my previous video. But then they also had the third and the last feast, which was another 50-day count after the new wine. So I was thinking yesterday on, okay, so if the Feast of New Wine was such an important feast and there was such a convergence, should we wait for another 50 days? And I came to the conclusion that no, but I'll go in this presentation through the whole process. So I'll bake the bread again. Feel free to jump around, but again, the bread tastes better if you watch through the process. And if you find this information useful, please like and share so then we can spread the word, because there might not be, well, there's exactly 1 week left, it seems. All right, let's get to it. So this was the original question, because now that we have Passover, we have everything. So then would we be able to also answer this question? Do we have to wait yet another 50 days for the Feast of New Oil? Because in the parable of the 10 virgins, there's also oil plays a significant role. So I'll come back to that in the end when I do the conclusion as well. All right, but let's get started on. So yeah, after the Feast of New Wine, another 50-day count for the Feast of New Oil, and it's the last of the Omer counts. And after this Feast of New Oil, which is a 1-day feast, there is a log burning, a wood burning for multiple days, and then it's already a Feast of Trumpets. So it kind of ties all the spring feasts or the summer feasts, because they only had summer and winter. Summer ends on this feast. And this year it falls on September 4th and 5th, but that's not relevant due to the conclusion. So perhaps this was already fulfilled last year, and I'll show you the evidence. One is, of course, that we had thousands of dreams and visions and signs on this 23, 24, 9. So September, and 7 was also there with the 7 with the lightning and everything. So next, let me explain why I think it was already fulfilled on the Feast of Trumpets last year. So when you have Passover, you have everything. Okay, so then we should know also, when was this Feast of New Wine? In the year that Jesus was crucified. So we know the crucifixion was exactly on the 19th of March 33 AD. So then we can calculate the Feast of New Wine, because it's 3 Omer counts, 50, 50, 50, so 150 days after that. And as we know, full moon starts the month, because this was a new moon. There can not be a solar eclipse during a full moon. It can only happen on a new moon. So we know 1st of Nisan was a full moon. And I know Daniel at Blow the Shofar has been talking about this for a long time, and but now we know it 100%. This is how it goes. So now we know how to calculate the Hebrew date as well. So the Gregorian date, 150 days, is at 23rd of August. But the Hebrew date is 22nd of Elul, and that's the Feast of New Wine for the Essenes. So let me show you how the skies looked, the stars and the moon and the sun looked like on those 2 dates, and then you can draw your own conclusions. So let's start with the last year. Sun was right there next to the, let me see if I can find this, yeah. Sun was next to the almond-shaped bone, the awakened bone that I have my many videos on. That's perfectly aligned in here on the 23rd of September. Okay, then how did it look like in 23rd of August? Pretty close. The plan is not yet perfect, is not yet in there, but the sun is where the head is, where Jesus is. And of course we have Mercury and Mars alignment here as well, and we have Venus. Of course in 2025 we also had this Venus in here. Mars was here. Okay, but to the point, the skies look very much similar if you look at it. There's not much difference between the position of the sun, and these are both viewed from Jerusalem. All right. And then I'm again reminded by Isaiah 46, declaring the end from the beginning. So in the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew 25, what happened first? Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. What was the difference between these two? They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. So what happened first before anything else in the parable? The virgins took oil, or did not take oil, on the 23rd to the 24th of September. That was such a sign that, all over the world, that, everybody talking about rapture. You had all the time in the world to read about it, know about it, make your peace with Jesus, get to know him, get as close to him as possible. That was the moment to take the oil, and the foolish ones did not take the oil. Yep. So is the Feast of New Wine on the 16th, 17th of July this year the only feast not yet fulfilled during our Exodus journey? Because we've covered everything. We've covered all the feasts of the Lord along the way. And now we're closing in on the last one, the Feast of New Wine, which was basically a hidden feast, which we only found out during these last moments. And our Exodus started on the autumn equinox, Feast of Trumpets, last year. Are we exactly 1 week away from Rapture? So I'll end with this. So was the Feast of New Oil already fulfilled last year? Yes, the oil was completed. That was the first thing that the virgins either took or did not take. So maybe for the wise virgins it was fulfilled, and for the foolish ones it'll be fulfilled perhaps this year after the rapture. Yeah. And we had all the signs, spiritual fulfillment, alignment with the appointed time of Feast of Trumpets was there. Everything was there. The remnant, the virgins were sealed. The 5 wise ones were prepared. How many dreams and revelations we've had since then? Many, all of them. Like 99% of all of them in my life, at least, we've had since the last 9 months. Yep. So then the only thing is, from 16th sunset until the sunset on the 18th, that's the window, Hebrew days. So Feast of New Wine. Be blessed, my friends. Thank you.